Now we're going to talk about French President Emmanuel Macron winning his second term against far-right opponent Marine Le Pen.
For President
French news.
Emmanuel Macron won re-election last night over a far right-wing opponent, Marine Le Pen. Voters gave Macron a substantial victory in a runoff that was expected to be very close. Elaine Cobb is covering the election in Paris. And Elaine, the significance of this vote goes far beyond France.
Yes, there were sighs of relief across much of France and beyond as Macron's victory ended the chances of an extremist president with close ties to Russia and hostile to NATO.
I love that they make it seem like Marine Le Pen's most dangerous element is like her ties to Russia. Like, who gives a fuck? They're not going to be able to single-handedly fucking, like, I don't know, aid Russia when the rest of the fucking planet, including the French people, already are against Russia. Like, shut the fuck up. Stop trying to build a fucking narrative. The significantly worse instance here is not whether or not Le Pen is going to try and like use political capital to fucking sway the war in Russia's favor, especially considering that she does not have that kind of political capital, but actually launch on or utilize pre-existing vitriolic attitudes that French people have towards nationalism and specifically towards immigrants. In a race where functionally both Macron and Le Pen were trying to fucking race to the bottom on Islamophobia, it's idiotic to consider this from a Russia angle. And you're just trying to fucking cut it. You're just trying to cut into the conversation to be like, oh yeah, she was pro-Russia or whatever the fuck. Doesn't matter. She could be literally sucking Vladimir Putin. And ultimately, none of that matters because you can't, like, you're not going to be able to sway the election or sway the fucking government to operate that way. But you can absolutely, from a position of influence and power, make domestic policy changes that are absolutely Islamophobic. And fuck.
President Macron's supporters counted down to victory under the Eiffel Tower, where his post-election party continued into the night. Macron won more than...
The funniest part is that like so many Macron voters openly admit that they voted against Le Pen. And so much so that even Macron had to admit that and said that he would change his attitude. Not saying that he will, because he is a fucking rugged neoliberal. But, you know, that's a huge ordeal in France, specifically for also what they declare the second presidential election when you know they divvy out the votes in parliament and party building.
58% against Le Pen's 41%, the closest the far right has come to.
Also 41% for like a straight up person that has ties to Nazis and ran as like openly neo-Nazi as you can be last time around. That's fucking insane. So all it took was for someone to be a little bit more Nazi than her, for her to look more reasonable in comparison to Zemmour, for her to get 41% of the vote. Think about that. Think about how fucking devastating that it is. Think about how devastating that is. If that does not fucking cause concern in your mind, in your eyes, I don't know what to fucking tell you.
Taking the top seat in France.
We stood up against nationalism, and we try to show that today we have to be united more than ever.
But his celebration will be short-lived. This election has shown deep divisions that Macron acknowledged in his victory speech. We need to be respectful, he said. Our country is full of so many doubts, so many divisions, so we will need to be strong, but no one will be left behind. Macron will have a tough job uniting the French behind him. This election showed extremist voters far outnumbered those from the centre or the traditional left and right parties. After the result, there were protests in several cities against both candidates.
You know what's funny about it? Mélenchon could have won the first round vote if the Green and Liberal parties voted for him, but instead they didn't, almost leading to a far-right win. Yes, I do know that. I did mention that before. There are social democrat parties that were, you know, using all of their political capital to attack Mélenchon, who was within striking distance of making it through the first round. I think they were between like 3 points, so around, give or take, 400,000 votes that he could have easily fucking gotten from the Green Party and the Social Democratic parties. And instead, they spent all of that time and all of their political capital attacking Mélenchon. and then turned around and immediately were like, yeah, vote for Macron. Because guess what, dude? They're not fucking real leftists, okay? They're not. They're fucking insane. Now, this doesn't mean that like Mélenchon was going to win, but don't you think that another vote and more debates and deliberations around a neoliberal versus a socialist would have been a little bit healthier for public discourse than a neoliberal versus someone who is a Nazi? Fascist versus neoliberalism is not should not be the death sentence for these Western democracies, supposedly democracies. But we're constantly finding ourselves trapped in this exact same space. Same with, for example, the Pennsylvania elections for the open Senate seat in Pennsylvania. You have John Fetterman, who is the likely candidate for the Democratic Party, and yet all of the other candidates that are running in the Democratic primary have no way of winning it, and yet they're using millions and millions of dollars of ad campaigns to continue to attack Fetterman, rather than solidify their support behind him to ensure that there's another Democratic senator. Why are they doing that? What's going on? Huh? Democrats love talking about winning over the leftist support whenever it's time for the general election. They actually spend their entire time attacking the left, even during the general, because you have to vote for them. Otherwise, democracy dies in the darkness. Well, it sure seems like democracy is dead right now. Sure doesn't seem like democracy is winning currently under the Biden administration, where the House and Senate are in the hands of the Democratic Party. And yet Republicans are using the state legislature all around the country to absolutely destroy LGBTQ rights and the rights of women to have autonomy over their own bodies. What's going on? Why is it that the Democrats always expect, the liberal Democrats always expect leftist support when push comes to shove? But when an actual leftist, who isn't the biggest leftist by any stretch of the imagination, for the record, John Fetterman certainly is not, Harvard educated, yet very interesting background, pro-fracking, but I guess that's a given in Pennsylvania. But a real salt-of-the-earth guy that is profoundly popular in his own state and certainly in his own city. After all, he's such a fan of his own city that he's got it tattooed on his body. Every single person that has been murdered in his town. And yet the Democrats that know this don't want to win. Democrats that recognize that Fetterman is exactly the kind of person that the Democratic Party needs in areas, rural areas specifically, to win back certain safe havens for the Democratic Party, certain institutional Democratic Party battleground states and neighborhoods, want more neoliberal cardboard cutouts like Connor Lamb. What's going on? Is that good? I'm just going to do Tucker Carlson style coverage going forward. It is true, though. It is literally true. Like, Democrats always want, whoever is supposed to win in elections, and yet they are attacking John Fetterman, who is slated to win. He's going to win the Pennsylvania primary for the Democratic Party. And yet, the Democrats that are completely aware of this are still spending millions of dollars attacking him. Where's the solidarity now? Where's the solidarity for leftists when they have a shot at going up against the neoliberal established order? They did this to Bernie, and in France, they did this to Mélenchon. The people of France deserved an election between a neoliberal and an actual leftist. Now, is Mélenchon the communist revolutionary that we all want? Was he the vanguardist? Absolutely not. By no stretch of the imagination was Mélenchon supposed to be the communist savior of France either. He was, just like Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn before Bernie, a social democrat adjacent socialist. And yet the Green Party and the Communist Party and numerous other social democratic parties refused to unite behind Mélenchon and ensure that he made it through 400,000 extra votes to the second round of elections. They decided to attack him, and then immediately, as soon as he lost, launched their support towards the neoliberal candidate.
Fireworks were launched at the police. Tear gas was used to clear crowds. One banner called Macron the Robin Hood of the rich. Le Pen echoed that sentiment. To avoid this hoarding of power by...
Dude, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Fetterman has been the front runner the entire time, even with Lam's attacks. Oh, thank God our liberal is back, the Faustini. If he has been the front runner this entire time, why is Conor Lamb trying to use the time that he pulled a gun on a black person that was jogging and using that as a way to fucking attack him and cutting agitprop against him? That's really interesting. Does that actually absolve Conor Lamb's failure to win the Democratic primaries in Pennsylvania? Does not absolve him of the sin of attacking left, wouldn't you say? And yet he still is. Notice how you didn't defend that behavior and instead tried to say, well, it was unsuccessful, so you're blowing it out of proportion. Why is the Democratic Party wasting dumbass liberals like you and all the money that you're sending to the Democratic Party? Why? Because he wants to win. It's a shitty way to do it, but it's not working. But if he knows that he's not going to win, why is he still doing it? You already recognize that he's not going to win. Why is the Democratic Party not saying, hey, we have a strong contender here to defeat the Republicans and take over a Senate seat? Why is the Democratic Party... First of all, I know why you're not answering my question, because you don't want to answer my question because you know I'm right. You 100% know I'm right. John Fetterman is a little bit too close to the left. He's not within the ranks of the establishment Democrats. And that's precisely why they see that as a larger threat. The Democratic Party sees anyone who even claims to be a leftist a bigger threat than the Republicans. That is just 100% the certainty and the truth. Just the truth. Straight up. I saw another candidate who brought up the Fetterman incident with a jogger against him in a debate. The clip went viral. Yeah, you know what's really funny about the Fetterman jogger incident? John Fetterman is friends with the jogger now. Yeah, you won't hear that in mainstream news, and you certainly won't hear that from the likes of Conor Lamb, but that's the truth. But the Democrats don't want the truth. They just want to destroy. They don't even want to win. They just want to destroy any opportunity that's someone who is left adjacent, not even certainly a leftist, just left adjacent, to win against Republicans. The jogger that John Fetterman pulled a gun on and did not shoot, by the way, still ridiculous that he did that, said he was going to vote for John Fetterman. The jogger that he pulled a gun on endorsed John Fetterman, but you will never hear that from mainstream news. So remember that next time you see some disgusting agitprop against someone who is left adjacent. All right, let's keep watching.
I will continue my commitment to France. In an increasingly fractured country, Le Pen vows to fight on. Congratulations have been pouring in from around the world, including from President Biden and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. Macron's real fight now will be at home. Gail?
All right, Elaine Cobb reporting from Paris. We thank you.